When you're writing an academic paper, you know that using your sources correctly is really important. In this guide, we're going to break down the practical steps for academic citation so you can use sources with confidence.
So here's our plan. We'll start with why we cite sources at all. Then we'll get into the details of citing versus quoting, look at different ways to structure your citations, and even touch on choosing the correct verb tense. We'll finish up with a quick summary.
First things first, let's talk about why we even need to cite the work of other researchers. It's not just about following rules, it's truly a fundamental part of academic work.
So, citing your sources is absolutely essential for a few reasons. First, it's about giving credit where credit is due. You're acknowledging the original author's work. This shows respect. But it also does something important for your work. It gives your arguments more authority because you're showing they're built on existing, solid research. And finally, it's how you show that you're joining the academic conversation in your field.
Now that we know why we cite, let's look at how to do it the right way. And a big part of that is understanding the very important difference between citing and quoting.
This is a really crucial distinction. When you cite something, you're taking an idea and explaining it in your own words. You're summarizing it. You still have to name your source, of course, but when you quote, you're copying the author's exact words. These words must go inside quotation marks, and you also need to include a citation.
That leads to a good question. What happens if the quote you want to use is quite long? Well, for those longer passages, we use a special format called a block quotation. Here's an example of what that looks like. You can see how this quote from John Adams is separated from the main text. It's indented. This special formatting is a visual signal to your reader that these words are not your own.
So here are 5 simple rules for any quote that's longer than about 40 words or 4 lines. First, you need to introduce it in your own words. Then, you indent the whole block of text. Use single spacing for the quote itself. And, this is important, you do not use quotation marks. Finally, after the quote, you should always add your own analysis or comment on it.
Let's move on and explore 2 really common ways to integrate citations into your writing. The pattern you choose actually helps to emphasize different parts of your sentence.
This gives you an interesting choice as a writer. With an integral citation, the author's name is a key part of your sentence's grammar. This puts the focus on the researcher. With a non-integral citation, the author's name is just in parentheses at the end. This puts the focus on the information or the research finding itself.
Let's look at a few examples of integral citations. Notice how the author's name, like Kim or J et al., is necessary for the sentence to make grammatical sense. It flows naturally right inside the statement.
Now compare that to these non-integral examples. Here, you present the information first. The source is then just provided at the end as support. The main star of the sentence is the research finding, not the researcher.
Let's dig into a slightly more advanced point now, but one that can really improve your academic writing. And that is choosing the right verb tense when you introduce a source.
This table makes it pretty clear. You should use the past simple tense when you're talking about a single, finished study from the past, like Arslan investigated. You use the present perfect tense when you're referring to a general area of research where many people have contributed, as in, many researchers have investigated. And you use the present simple for a statement that is considered a generally accepted truth or fact.
There's one special exception. For very famous authors or foundational texts, think Aristotle or the Constitution, we often use the present simple tense. Why? Because their ideas are considered so important and timeless that they are still relevant today. So we would say Aristotle argues, not argued.
Here's a great way to make your writing more dynamic and precise. Try to use a variety of these reporting verbs. Instead of always writing "the author says," you could use words like suggests, argues, or indicates. Each one has a slightly different shade of meaning, so you can choose the verb that best captures what the author was doing.
We've definitely gone over a lot of material. So, let's just do a quick recap of the most important ideas to keep in mind when you're writing. So, here are the key takeaways. First, remember that citing isn't just a rule, it's how you join the academic conversation with respect and authority. Second, always know the clear difference between citing an idea in your own words and quoting someone's exact words. Third, make a conscious choice between integral and non-integral patterns, depending on what you want to emphasize. And finally, be careful with your verb tense to send the correct signal about the research you're discussing.
And that's our guide to mastering academic citation. If you apply these ideas, you'll be able to present your research in a much more clear and professional way. We hope this makes your next writing project a great success.